Hope you all had a nice week off. Welcome to game week, obviously a big one this week. Anybody who hasn't yet, I suggest you reach out to Ohio State, Jerry Emig for credentials. Make sure you're taken care of there. And with that being said, we'll turn things over to Coach Huff.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good to see you guys again. Coming off a really good bye week for us as a program. Got an opportunity to continue to develop our football team. Got an opportunity to get on the road and do some recruiting, which was really good as well. So in a really good spot, feel good about our progress. The more and more you look around college football with the transfer portal and where the landscape is now, you probably don't really know what or who your football team's going to be probably for a couple weeks, just because 40 of our guys, at least 35 of them, we got in June. So there's going to be some developmental things that you got to continue to work on. There's going to be some things that you find out just by playing a game, who does well in games, who prepares the right way, who can take care of their body. So really excited about where we are. Obviously, this week's game on the national stage, really good for our program, really good for our community, really good for the state of West Virginia, really good for Marshall. A great opportunity in a great college football venue. A lot of history and tradition at the Ohio State University and in the Horseshoe and that whole program. I think Coach Day has done a phenomenal job. I'll be honest, probably the best team I've seen on film ever. And I'm not just saying that to get everybody excited. They're really good. They are better than the 2001 national championship team that we played at Alabama. When you look at across the board, I'm not saying every player is the best player in the country, but collectively they have a really good, explosive, fast, strong, physical football team. You kind of look at what they've done to build their team. $20 million NIL resources invested into this team. They've been able to go out and acquire some of the best talent in the country. A lot of these guys, it's funny looking at a lot of these guys because I recruited a lot of them at the University of Alabama. Their starting center, Seth McLaughlin, was a freshman for us at the University of Alabama. Travion Henderson was one of the top backs in the country. We battled Ohio State for him. Brandon Ennis was one of the most explosive players in the state of Florida when he came out. Obviously, Caleb Downs has done a really good job for them. And then they've got some freshmen that are playing like seniors. So they've got a really good team. I think Coach Day and his staff have done a really good job of developing the guys that they have in the program. They've done a really good job of adding the pieces to their program. Obviously, they've played well at home. The last time a group of five program beat them in the Horseshoe was 1939, Iowa pre-flight. I'm not even sure what colors Iowa pre-flight wore. But obviously they've done a really good job playing at home. So tremendous opportunity on the national stage. I say all that to say our guys fully understand the mission. We fully understand the size of the challenge. It's really going to come down to we got to play our best game. We don't have to grow 6 inches. We don't have to put on 40 pounds. We don't all of a sudden have to become faster than we are. We just have to play our best game individually and collectively. The margin of error in these type of games are extremely small. So we've got to capitalize on our opportunities when they come. We got to understand they're going to make some plays. There's going to be some punches thrown. We got to respond. And we've got to continue to battle for 60 minutes. If we do that consistently for 60 minutes, we'll like the result. So a tremendous challenge, extremely excited. Started off the week with probably one of our best Monday practices as far as Monday traditionally is kind of a jog through, kind of introductory practice for us. Yesterday it was full speed. So as a coach, you're like, well, why can't we do this every week? But obviously coming off a bye week, not having a game, and then obviously the guys understand their opportunity. So there's a lot of young men who grew up with a lot of players that are playing at Ohio State. We have a lot of players on our team from the Ohio area. So going back home, tickets are scarce. Typically, you kind of get to, barter with your teammates. Hey, I'll give you 2 of my tickets for this game. You give me 2 of your tickets for next game. There is free haircuts being given for tickets. There is, hey, I'll carry your helmet after practice for tickets. There's a lot. So obviously our players and their families are excited about this opportunity, and so am I. So with that, open up with questions.
Coach, normally you don't really, I guess coaches don't like a bye week that early, but you mentioned it was beneficial from a health standpoint and then just to get ready to play a really, really good football team.
Yeah, I think anytime, the schedule is always going to be a challenge, however it sets up. Whenever you have an early bye week, you got to kind of adjust what you do in camp because of that. I think again, like we talked about, with where college football is at our level, you need a little bit of a break in there to kind of really figure out who you are. I don't think we'll know that until probably another week or so, because as you're learning who you are when you're playing extremely talented programs, it kind of changes some of the things that you want to do or will be able to do. But we were able, one, obviously coming off a very hard-fought battle with Virginia Tech, to get some guys kind of rested up, healed up. Some guys who were limited in that game. I talked about A.J. Turner last week. Gave them an opportunity to get a few extra days. Again, same thing. We got to go into this battle and come out of it healthy in order to be able to do what we want to do ultimately throughout the season. But it timed up really good because it allows us to adjust some things in camp. It allows us to kind of make some adjustments. It allows us to go get tested on another level before we get into our level or our conference play, which is really good. So I think it's a positive, if you manage it the right way. And I think coming off last year's schedule kind of layout, we adjusted some of the things that we did. We adjusted how we approach some things, which I think will help us in the long run.
When you evaluate the first 2 weeks on film, obviously so much of this offense is based on timing and being on the same page, on every single play. How have you seen that timing improve in practice the past couple weeks, and just how much closer are you to finally feel like it's clicking?
Yeah, one of the things that doesn't show up, and obviously as a coach you watch it all, you evaluate everything, not just what you see on Saturdays. 2 things. One, I think it's really difficult as a coach, not a fan or just someone who watches the 2 hours on Saturday. You watch young men at multiple positions go through practice and execute. And then maybe it doesn't happen as fluently in the game. Well, as a coach, you got to start to evaluate, okay, is it the opponent? Is it anxiety? Is it, okay, when the lights come on, this young man just changes? So you got to kind of evaluate. It's hard to watch a kid go through practice and have the consistency, catching the ball, throwing the ball, tackling, making the right calls, and then in the game it may not transpire that way. So you got to evaluate what is it that's kind of the mix-up. Is it they just need more game reps? You'll never get the same speed in practice as you're going to get in the game. You can't dictate what the opponent's going to do. Are they going to play the same coverage? Are they going to run the same run plays? So you got to kind of give it time. You got to kind of say, okay, well, you can't just say, hey, the left tackle got beat on that play, take him out, put another guy in. Well, that's the easy. Well, if the other guy behind the left tackle had proven in practice that he had the same consistency, or the DB or whatever it is, you would have already been playing him. So you got to kind of give it time. With that being said, you can't wait an entire year. So you do have to have some idea of, okay, we got to make a change, or I see enough progress. The second part of that is I think there is it's the best way to say it. I think there is some, for us, perfect example. One of the concerns or one of the question marks that we all had, you, me, how was the O-line going to play? Right? You got 4 new guys. Well, we've given up 2 sacks in 2 games. The same young man who went and got 4 sacks and a forced fumble and so many tackles for loss against ODU had 0 sacks against us. So the ball getting out of the quarterback's hands is at a premium. Now, sometimes we're getting it out so fast that the timing of the route and the catch may not be there. But we got to get it out of his hands, or we're going to be in a situation where you think back last year when our quarterback got dinged up and he had to hold on to the ball Well, now you're taking sacks. Well, if I'm going to choose possible incomplete pass or a sack, I'm going to take the incomplete pass because I don't lose yardage. So if that makes sense. So as a coach, you go back and evaluate. You know what I mean? Okay, the whole timing of the passing game. One, if the quarterback's on his back, it doesn't matter if he sees the route or doesn't see the route. Doesn't matter if the receiver is open or not. If the quarterback's on his back, that doesn't help. So our timing as far as getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands has been good. Now we have to marry that up with the routes. We have to marry that up with ball location. We have to marry that up with continuing to catch the ball. Part of that is, okay, the ball is going to come out a little bit faster in a game than it does in practice. In practice, the quarterback doesn't get hit. Guy runs by him. Oh, I would have had a sack. Coach, you should have blew the whistle. Well, in a game, they can really hit him. So just understanding that sometimes, especially take the last game, for example, when you're playing man coverage, the route may be designed for 8, but you may have to cut it off at 6 to get to the level and get in the window quicker. And I think that's the part we got to continue to work on. We've worked on it over the bye week, but that's the part, you know what I mean, that you understand, yeah, I got to get to my depth. I got to run fast to get to my depth. I got to be dynamic when we're out, but I still have to understand that quarterback's got to get the ball out of his hands. I think when you look at people ask one of the things, why did you go to the air raid? Because it takes some of the pressure off the O-line because the ball gets out of the quarterback's hands. Now, we still got to work on the blending of the two, and that's some of the reason why we don't have as many sacks, but we have some inconsistency in the pass game. I feel very confident that that will come when the level of talent comes back down to us a little bit, you know what I mean? Because now we don't have to get it out so fast because this guy's the all ACC sack leader. You know what I mean? The talent comes down a little bit. You still can't hold it forever, but I think that will come. Now, in the meantime, we've got to be able this week to understand that it's got to come out quick, and we still got to get to the right windows. We still got to get to the right areas, if that makes sense.
Speaking of talent, you obviously Ohio State very talented on offense, but what are they doing that maybe stands out to you as far as schematically, or who's really standing out to you as far as their players?
Coach Chip Kelly has obviously been doing this for a very long time. They're doing some very basic, plays that their players know. They're extremely fast. That's the difference. They can run, and that is something that I can put any player in the right position. If you're faster than me, it's going to be very difficult for you to cover me. They're fast. Up front, they're big. They're doing a lot of base concepts. Their quarterback is doing a really good job of, and no disrespect when you say this, of managing the plays. He knows where the ball is supposed to go. If it's not there, it's check it down, throw it away, we'll play another play. So I think I don't want to call him a game manager because I think that's a knock to quarterbacks. But he's managing the plays well. He's not making a lot of bad decisions with the ball. And then because they're fast, he's able to throw the ball with space, or he's able to throw the ball on time, and they're splitting coverages. You watch some of the plays that they're making. I mean, they got the guy, we call it the kill zone. Anytime you catch the ball over the middle in between two players, you got the guy in the kill zone, and the guy just splits him. That's a little bit of birth. That's not really a play design where we're going to throw it right here at 5 yards and you're going to go 95. But that's what it is. They're really good. Coach Hartline does a really good job with their receivers as far as the route definition, being dynamic in their routes. That's some of the things that Coach Daggy has been preaching to our guys. It's not necessarily the play. It's being dynamic with the route. It's breaking it off with speed. It's making the defender kind of settle his feet, and then it's catching and knifing and not circling your feet. It's not running around the defense. It's running vertical. They do all the fundamental details with the physical skill of being fast. Obviously, from a O-line perspective, they got really good time because they're big. They do a really good job in the run game. One of the things that I think their running backs do a really good job of is when they stick their foot in the ground, they're sticking it in the ground at full speed. So you run through a lot of contact. They break a lot of tackles. They split a lot of angles. A lot of people, the mindset is you got to go play fast, and we do. But you can't play so fast that you're out of control, because what happens is they put their foot in the ground and they go vertical, and you're running by them. So those are the things that we got to really harp on. Approach angles is something that we talk about a lot with our defense. Tackling in the first game was really good. Second game was a little shaky, so we got to get back to tackling the right way. And part of it is you don't get to tackle as much, in practice anymore, just because of the physicality of trying to get guys to the game. So we've got to do a lot of fundamental drills on tackling approach angles. You got to do a lot. You got to do a really good job of understanding. Typically you drop in a zone or you're covering man. That guy ain't gonna be 5 yards behind you. He's gonna be 15 yards behind you. You know what I mean? So you got to adjust with that, if that makes sense. I think a big part of it is up front, the more time you got for that guy to run 20, 30, 40 yards down the field, is the more, coverage lane. Some of the things that we had to get the ball out quick, last time we played, we didn't have time to get the guy down the field. You know what I mean? So we got to be able to throw some of the short passes like they're doing and get vertical. We got to be able to connect on some of the fades that you've seen us hit on. So they're doing a really good job with the fundamentals. You compare really good coaching and development of fundamentals with really good skill sets, and you got a really explosive football team.
Hey, Coach, is there anything about prepping against a top 10 team and being successful in beating Notre Dame a couple years ago that you can apply this week?
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about, and I don't know if I did a great enough job talking about it, is you've got to put pressure on a really good team. And what that means is there's opportunities in the game where you have a chance to, we say you got to hit your layups is what we talk about. Kirby Smart was one that said you got to hit your layups. There's times in a game where you have to do the basic things in order to put pressure on the other team to have to make a play. So, for example, just going back, second drive of the game, we move the ball down the field and we get in field goal range. You have to hit those field goals. Now, if it's a 62-yard field goal, it's a different story. But that dynamic changes the game because now all of a sudden the offense just drove down the field on us and they got 3 points. Well, now it's 3-0. So now you have to go back and you got to, as the other team, you're like, well, we got to go out and score. Well, we got to come down and we got to vice the punt returner because for, I don't know, 2 quarters, that was the only touchdown they had. So think about it. We just tackle the punt returner. It's 3-0. Okay? We end up blocking the punt and we score 2 plays later. That's 10-0. All of a sudden now the pressure is on the other team. Does that make sense? You think back 2 years ago. We battled with Notre Dame. We put enough pressure on them, they throw a pick 6. So those are the moments in these type of games that you have to have. And the way you do that is just by hitting your layups. It's not by, running the reverse double pass and everybody's, oh, wow, that was a great play. It's just by doing the basic things, hitting the layups, catching the ball, staying on track, converting third and mediums, getting the ball into the red zone and getting points out of it, whether it's you prefer a touchdown, but you got to get points if you get the ball into the red zone. That puts pressure on the other team to have to make a play. Every coach will tell you most football games are lost, not won. And when you do that and you're putting pressure on the other team, now all you have to do is be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So that's the message. We've got to be able to put pressure on Ohio State by hitting our layups. What does that mean? Being in the right gap, vicing the ball the right way, tackling the ball on defense, moving the ball efficiently on offense, converting on third downs, staying on the field, getting into the score zone, putting points on the board. If you do that consistently enough, typically what happens is somebody makes a mistake. And that's where, everyone's, Gilmore's pick 6 will live in Marshall glory forever. But that was a result of us putting pressure on them for 3.5 quarters. So that's what we got to be able to do. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to make some plays, or that doesn't mean that they're not going to score points. It's just when we get a chance to make our layups, we have to hit our layups. We can't shoot 3-pointers until we can hit our layups. So that's kind of the message, if that makes sense.
Coach, you just played Virginia Tech, great environment, and now 2 weeks later going into this great environment. Does it help that you played maybe Virginia Tech several weeks ago, but the next game, right back at it? Does that kind of help?
I prefer to play Stony Brook 12 games in a row. That would be awesome. Everyone would love me. Everyone would love all the decisions we make. You guys would write great stories. Honestly, I think Owen Porter said it last year. The mentality in our locker room is spot the ball, and that's not a disrespect to anybody. It's let's spot the ball and go play. As a coach, you always want this schedule to line up to where, hey, when you're a little dinged up, you got, you a little bit of help. But our players they're spot the ball and let's go play. And that's not, oh, well, we're, overlooking anybody or, it's an opportunity. These guys work 365 days for 12 opportunities. And some of these guys, don't get this, have never been in this kind of arena. So this is an opportunity for them to go show who they are, how they can play. I think the one thing that you could say is the culture or fabric of our program is we play hard. And I think that comes from not making one game bigger than the other, not making one stadium more important than the other. It comes from, hey, you get 12 opportunities to create value for yourself. And it doesn't matter who the opponent is. You got to prepare extremely well. You're going to get punched. You got to punch back. And I think that's what, and I would make the argument that's been here before I got here. I'm not taking credit for that. That's just been who Marshall's been. We find a way to stand up in the face of adversity. We find a way to bow our necks and battle. And that's a little bit of what this university community program has been. And we've been able to keep that. Sometimes what happens, new culture, you kind of lose some of that, especially with, transfer portal. We've lost some guys who were true, Marshall, Bleed Green, Owen Porters, Eli Neals. But they were able to instill that in, to the locker room. Coaches have bought into it. I've bought into it and kind of, been able to magnify that message, throughout. Even when we recruit, we tell them, we're spot the ball. We're a hard-nosed football team. We're going to work. I think BA and his staff, the way you can call it grind, but the way we work our guys throughout the off season kind of sets you up for these type of events.
Coach, along those same lines, when you assess whoever you run out at quarterback or running back, does some of that go into maybe these guys have played Power 4 teams before? Maybe Christian's the big guy from Michigan State. Does any of that enter into it? Is it more what they do out here on practice?
It's a combination. I don't think you say because, X, Y, and Z player transferred from X, Y, and Z school, he's going to play well in this environment. I think you look at, okay, what are our deficiencies and how do we hide them? And that's what you're really trying to do. What are our deficiencies? How do you hide them? What are our strengths? How do we magnify them? We felt our strength, was getting the ball to Fitz in the Virginia Tech game. We targeted him 12 times. We felt like he gave us a matchup. We felt like Stone got the ball out of his hands the fastest, as we felt like. We felt like some of the other players at multiple positions had other strengths, but we didn't think they were a strength against Virginia Tech. So that's how it kind of goes into it. You can have, a DB that's really, really good at a certain technique, but if he doesn't run well, you can't put him out there against a guy who's really, really fast. So you got to kind of balance the two, and then you try and then collectively on all three phases, what do we do? We've made some adjustments on special teams. We looked out there and we were playing some guys who were in backup roles, good players, but were in backup roles. And when you're returning against probably one of the best punt returners in the country, you love to have starters. So we've been able to make some adjustment. We're going to play another really good punt returner. So we've got to put some starters on our special teams. Then the flip side of that is you got to balance, because if they're running down on kickoff and running down on punt, where do you lose on offense or defense? But I think it kind of goes with, okay, what does this team present as challenges? How can we hide our deficiencies or our weaknesses? Don't put our players in position to fail. And then how can we magnify our strengths? Where do we feel like we have an advantage? And that kind of, you put those two together with practice, and you kind of say, okay, this is the best package for this week. I know everyone's excited. I wouldn't say the group we run out there every week or the last 2 weeks is the group we're going to run out there against a Sun Belt team. Different challenges, different deficiencies, different dynamics, So, and then you practice all week and you kind of have a plan for certain guys' strengths and weaknesses. So you can't say, okay, well, we're going to play Fitz at DN because this DN's not playing well and Fitz is playing. You got to kind of, understand or have a plan and kind of stick to it. I think that's the biggest thing. And no, it doesn't always work. But it's hard to just do something that you haven't practiced. It's very difficult to do that. It's easy to do it on a video game, and trust me, it's easy to do it. Trust me, I do it on the bus on the way home. Well, we should have did this, this, and this. Well, we took 250 reps at this. Think back to game one. We took so many reps at a defense they didn't play. We only had 6 plays that we could run against the defense they were running, because those were the only 6 plays that we had actually run versus that defense. So I think, again, and to give the kids a chance. If you're in the NFL, you can draw a play up on the sideline and they got to go execute it, or you cut them. At our level, our guys need reps. We have repetition guys. So we try to give them confidence through reps. We try to give them security in technique and fundamental through reps. I feel good about the track we're on. Trust me, I know where we are, but I feel good about the track we're on. And I feel good about the players we have. Would love to have some of those guys from Ohio State too. So if they want to transfer on down, we've got a Tudor's Biscuit NIL, all you can eat. So if any of those guys that run really, really fast at Ohio State like Tudor's Biscuits, I promise you, all you can eat all day if you transfer here. So, but yeah.
I don't know how to follow that. When you look at, obviously the level of talent, it feels like a whole nother level of college football sometimes when you get up into those big arenas. But, when you're talking about executing the layups and hitting those, when you do that successfully in some of these big games, how much confidence does that give you going into conference play if you can execute it?
Yeah, a ton. And that's what the biggest thing, I'm just evaluating where we are. I think our defense have played consistent football. Obviously, there's some things we got to continue to improve on. Obviously, when you get, when your play count gets up in those type games, you're running into a little bit of a depth issue. I think our defense has played consistent football. I think we got to get some more turnovers. That's the one thing that we haven't had a ton of. And I think we got to continue to tackle well. Now, with that, staying healthy, keeping the guys in. I think offensively, what we need right now is efficiency. We haven't turned the ball over a ton, which was our Achilles heel last year. We haven't given up a ton of sacks, which was our Achilles heel last year. We've got to be efficient, and that's what the kind of the goal has been over the bye week. And once you're efficient, I use the basketball philosophy with them because they all think they're basketball players. Once you can hit your layups and free throws, then we can do the Steph Curry half-court shots. Then we can do the bombs down the field and the new plays. But we got to be able to hit. We got to be able to get in the layup line and use our left hand, our right hand in the layup line. We got to be able to hit our free throws. That's what we're missing on offense. We've got to be able to be more efficient. And that doesn't mean that efficient is 80 points. Efficient is hitting the layups, throwing and catching. Efficient is continuing not to give up sacks. Efficient is continuing to be better in the run game. Efficient is making sure that the quarterback understands that, hey, I got to get the ball out of my hands, but sometimes I may have to take off and run. I may have to throw it away, all of those things. And that's what we got to continue to work on. Now, you evaluate the flip side. When we played Stony Brook, I thought we were extremely efficient. Kind of once we got going, we were extremely efficient. We were throwing, we were catching, we were moving the ball. We didn't have a lot of penalties, no turnovers, no sacks, all of those things. Obviously, against Virginia Tech, we weren't. So we know we got to find the balance, and that's our job as coaches to say, okay, where are we deficient in our efficiency, and where does the opponent come in? Because now, like you're saying, once you get into conference, I hope. I haven't looked at all the conference schools, but I hope and I pray that there's no Ohio State in the Sun Belt Conference right now. I know conference realignment is big, so it would be great for the conference allotment if Ohio State joined the Sun Belt. But you would hope that when you get to conference, now you're a little bit equally matched. So now the efficiency should go up. But to me, there's still opportunities in these games against Power 5 schools, P4 schools, where we can be more efficient. And I think that's what we got to focus on from an offensive perspective. Same thing on special teams. We're kind of like the boom or bust right now. We 51-yard kickoff return, versus, Stony Brook, some really good punt return yards, and we give up a punt return, we block a punt, we miss a field goal, we make a field goal. So we got to kind of get in the middle. So now, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, you're kind of figuring out who your team is. You want to be hitting your stride just as you hit conference play. And I think that's part of us, our job as coaches. We got to continue to develop guys. You got to continue to get guys in game action so you know who can do what. And then you got to continue to adjust. Where do we need to be more efficient? How can we help the players be more efficient?
When you take a look at that Ohio State defense, obviously they've been to Tudor's biscuit world a lot, it looks like. How would you describe them? What are they doing well? Where are they finding their success?
Yeah, same thing. Size and speed is the first deal. Their D line is long, explosive, powerful. Their linebackers run. Their secondary guys are explosive, and then they're doing a really good job from a coaching perspective of keeping it simple. For them. You look at kind of how they play schematically. There's not a lot of if this then this, if this then this. It's keeping it simple, allowing their talent to play, and I think that's what when you get a extremely talented team, the more you can just let their talent play rather than trying to let their minds play, the faster they play. But I think again, when you look at their front, the game's won and lost typically in the line of scrimmage. When you look at their front, they're long, they're athletic, they're explosive. Coach Larry Johnson, I've known for a long time, was at Penn State for a very long time, has now moved over to Ohio State. He's always had really, really good defensive lines, and you can kind of see it's a little bit of the fabric of who they are. They just change the number and change the name on the back, but they're all long, they're all powerful. Their defensive ends really rush the passer really well. They do a good job against the run game because they're stout inside. And then they do a really good job of playing technique. I think when you watch film, they get off blocks really well. And that's a huge, probably undervalued piece of evaluating defensive linemen in college, like getting off of a block, meaning not just, hey, I strike the guy and knock him back, but I strike, shock, and shed, and I get to the ball. That makes it difficult for a running back because I'm pressing outside zone, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to put my foot in the ground. Well, when I put my foot in the ground, he snatches back into the gap. They do a really good job of that. You can tell it's something that they teach, which creates issues for an O-lineman because you're blocking the guy. You can't see the ball. He can. So you're blocking the guy, and you think, okay, the ball's outside, and then he snatches you outside and goes inside. So there's some things that we got to do offensive line-wise to prepare for that. Tight ends-wise blocking as well. But I think it's the pure size, technique, fundamental, and strength that really separates these guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys all up there in Columbus for a really great weekend. Go Herd.